All right, I want a show of hands, or leave a comment in the comment section. How many of you have been around since I used to film these pregnancy updates every 2 weeks during my first 2 pregnancies? It was a lot. Hello everybody, it's Delilah and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little bit lighthearted, a little bit not so lighthearted. I have some news to share regarding this pregnancy, and I figured why not just do a full pregnancy update, because I don't think I've done that once this pregnancy. I feel like over time, after your 3rd, your 4th child, people just don't care as much. It's all a lot of repetition anyway, so I haven't shared like any pregnancy updates this time around. I figured now would be a good time. If you are new here, I am currently pregnant with baby number 4. The day that I'm filming this, I'm actually 27 weeks pregnant officially. So I am officially in my 3rd trimester. This pregnancy has just flown by so fast, and each pregnancy that I have had has gone by faster and faster and faster because we're busier and busier and busier. There is so much to do and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. We've also been feeling very overwhelmed by some of the news that we got this week. I went in for my 3rd ultrasound. We got some news and it's been a lot to process, and I wanted to process a little bit before I sat down and shared about it, because I didn't want to just come on here as a big unreasonable ball of emotions. I wanted to take some time to actually think this through before sharing it. So yes, I am going to share that in today's video, as well as some of the other things that have been going on with me this pregnancy, some symptoms that I've been experiencing. Sometimes I feel like in these pregnancy updates we can come across as just complaining, like all we're doing is complaining about the woes of pregnancy, and I'm gonna really try my best not to make it seem that way, because that's never been my intention. My intention with these videos is, first of all, a personal video diary of what this pregnancy has been like, but also to share with other moms what I've been going through, and I know a lot of other moms in the same boat can relate, and it's just nice to know you're not alone. I do have a small basket of laundry that I'm going to fold as I chat with you. So if you have a basket of laundry, I encourage you to grab it right now. Let's fold some laundry together and let's talk pregnancy. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about: varicose veins. This is something I have gotten worse and worse with each pregnancy. In my first pregnancy, I didn't have any. My second pregnancy is when I started to notice them. And then last pregnancy, they were starting to get pretty bad. For me personally, I don't really have them on my legs. There are a couple spots like behind my knee, and then on my upper thigh, but mostly they're on my lady parts and up my bum, and they've been crawling up my bum a lot this pregnancy. For the most part, it's not a big deal. They are painful sometimes, especially if I'm like sitting down for a long time, or like when I get up in the morning, all the blood kind of flows into that direction, and then they are more painful for a little while. But all in all, I am able to move around and do everything that I normally do in a day, and I don't really notice them. It is nice to sit on a cushioned surface though. I am thankful that this is probably the worst symptom that I have had. I feel like this is a more uncommon thing, because I personally don't know anyone else who has experienced this. As soon as there starts to be some more pressure buildup and like more pressure on my pelvis, that's when the veins start popping out again. And then after pregnancy, they go away completely. Have noticed, especially in the last like 3 weeks or so, I would say right around the time that we left on vacation, I started really noticing my pelvis loosening. Things are getting a little wobbly down there. My body is starting to prepare for birth, and I am feeling the effects of that. Not on an extreme level, like it's not very painful. I can move around, I can balance myself, I can run small amounts, I can walk around, bend up and down, move around normally, and it's really not an issue at all. There's no pain there. But I do experience some pain when I am rolling over in bed. That's actually quite painful. And then also if I'm putting a lot of weight on one side versus the other. So for example, putting on shoes or socks in the morning. It's best for me to sit down so I'm not putting the weight on my one foot, and then, because you know, it just hurts a little bit. Things are loose and unsteady, but I can totally go about my normal everyday activities without any issues. In fact, I would say I feel physically pretty good this pregnancy. I remember feeling just not at all like myself with my last pregnancy, especially towards the end. Even going for a 3-block walk was too much for my body. This time around, I'm feeling pretty strong and capable and able still at this point, and I'm very grateful for that. My hips widened significantly around the 18-week mark. I think I did talk about this, but my pant size went up a full size. I had to get new underwear. I had to get new pants. Like, nothing was fitting me anymore, and it was really tight and uncomfortable. My hips just, like, I don't know, they just expanded. I have noticed it is slowly starting to get just a little bit harder to move around and to do, you know, my regular tasks. Not that I can't or not that I'm in a lot of pain, but it's getting more challenging. Like bending over, you know, at this stage in pregnancy, it's sometimes you just choose to let the thing be on the floor instead of picking it up because it's just so much easier. The other day we were outside doing some yard work as well, and that's when I really noticed things are just, I will not be physically capable of doing much yard work this year. I knew that going into this, and I'm very okay with that. I know as much as I love doing yard work, it's just not something I can really do this year. I'll do what I can and I'll enjoy what I am able to do, but I'm not gonna push myself too far. I have no cravings, I have no nausea anymore. Around the 15-week mark is when that died away, which is how it usually is within my pregnancies. I feel like myself, but with a belly. Like, I feel overall really good, and man, I am so thankful for that. The round ligament pain has been much less this time. Last pregnancy, I remember it being pretty bad, especially around like the halfway mark. I did have some days of round ligament pain that was pretty intense. All in all, it has been very little, very manageable. I haven't had it for a really long time. I have noticed recently that I'm a little bit more out of breath than usual, and I have had to pee more than usual, which up until now has been something that I haven't experienced at all. I've been on my regular pee schedule and I haven't had to go more than I usually would. But baby must be moving down a little bit, or there must be a bit more pressure. Baby's probably growing a lot. Actually, at this point in pregnancy, it's pretty much all about growth, and baby's going to grow rapidly in the next few months. So the belly's about to get real big. There's about to be a lot more pressure. Things are going to get a lot more squishy in there. And I have noticed I need to pee a lot more frequently than I used to. I've been keeping track of the movements and just making sure, you know, every couple of hours there's some kind of movement, and I've noticed a lot of the movements for a lot of this pregnancy have been really, really low. Over the last couple of weeks, I've noticed a shift, and I can, now that this is my 4th pregnancy and I know what it feels like, I know that baby is head down simply by what the movements feel like. I've been feeling a lot more movements higher up on the belly, specifically on my left side. And so it was actually cool to hear my suspicions confirmed at the ultrasound and at my doctor's office. They told me that baby is head down and that their little legs and feet are kind of squished up. They're kind of folded up in half, and their feet and legs are right over here, and their head is down here. I know a lot of people wonder about the differences between my pregnancies. The biggest difference I've noticed this time around is, first of all, I feel very physically and mentally well. I noticed with my last 2 pregnancies with my boys, I mentally wasn't fully there, and I physically didn't feel very good. I remember having consistent nausea with Theo, and then with William, like physically aches and pains. I was just sore and not really myself. This time around, I feel really good. I remember feeling really good with my first pregnancy as well, so it's cool to feel that again. My first trimester though, the first trimester was pretty rough. But after that, things got a lot better. The second biggest thing I've noticed is the movement. So this baby moves a lot, but not strong movements. The movements are really not strong at all. And I think that's a big reason why I didn't feel any movements until I was almost halfway through the pregnancy. Just because they're not very strong movements. This isn't a very strong baby. Either that or my uterus is different this time. I'm not really sure. My placenta is along my back wall. It's not in front. So the placenta's not blocking any movement at all. But the movements just aren't as strong. I've kind of been waiting for some stronger movements because I remember with my boys, especially with Theo, his movements were so powerful. I don't have a feeling on the gender. I honestly have hardly even thought about it, and I'm trying not to think about it because I do drive myself crazy if that's what I'm focusing on and thinking about. So I'm trying not to think about that and just letting it be a massive surprise whenever the time comes for this baby to be born. I am curious though. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think it's a girl? Or do you think it's a boy? We have never found out the gender with any of our pregnancies. I will say that I knew Theo was a boy. Like, without a doubt, I knew he was a boy. William, I was kind of unsure. And then Eloise, I kind of had a feeling in the back of my head that she was a girl, but everyone was saying boy, and so I just kind of convinced myself that she was going to be a boy, and so it was kind of a cool surprise when she was a girl. This time around, I don't know. I have no feeling, nor have I really thought about it. We do have possible names, I think. Names this time around have been really hard for us. We haven't really talked about it a whole lot either, so we need to have a few more conversations about that. Normally by this time we have some pretty solid names picked out, but this time around, I don't know, names are hard. We've had a girl name in the back of our head since way before I was even pregnant, and we still love that name. I can't say we're totally sold on it, but we do have a name in mind. And then for a boy, I have a name that I really like, but I have yet to fully convince Zach. That is a general overview of where we are at this pregnancy and kind of how this pregnancy has been. If you've been following along for a while, since William, you will know that his pregnancy ended up being a very high risk pregnancy, a very like fluke high risk, very rare condition called vasoprevia. And it wasn't actually diagnosed until the day before he was born. It started with a low-lying placenta, and then with each ultrasound we had following that, we got worse news and worse news and worse news until a month before he was due, they diagnosed me officially with vasoprevia. Essentially, from what I can understand, my placenta was kind of wrapped this way around my back and was wrapping towards the front of my stomach. In fact, it was right where they would normally cut and make that incision for a C-section. And so they had to do a last-minute ultrasound right before they cut into my womb to make sure that they weren't cutting into the placenta. But that was just one of many issues. That something just was super wonky with the way that the placenta and the cord developed. The cord was all like bunched up in between William's head and my cervix, so there was no way that he could come out that way. And that was the least of it. The biggest issue was that there were exposed blood vessels. Normally the umbilical cord will encase all these blood vessels and keep them safe, and then it attaches into the placenta and it's all good and safe and there's nothing to worry about. But in this case, the umbilical cord didn't fully attach to the placenta from my understanding, and so there were exposed blood vessels. Now, if any of those blood vessels had burst during a contraction, for example, William would have bled out and I could have bled out as well. And obviously that was really scary for the baby because babies don't have a lot of blood volume, and so it would have, it could have been so bad, so bad. That was my experience with my last pregnancy, and was so random and out of the blue because my first two pregnancies were very low risk. They were very fast, quick, natural labors, absolutely no concerns whatsoever. And then with that last pregnancy, it was just such a huge high risk situation. It was so strange. And so this time around, I have been seeing the high risk doctor for my ultrasounds and some regular appointments. Once you have that condition, especially a placenta previa, it is more likely to happen again. So at my 20-week anatomy scan this time around, they did determine that the placenta was low-lying. From what they could tell, it was about 8 millimeters away from the cervix. Ideally, they want the placenta to be 2 centimeters away from the cervix. My doctor was confident that it would move, and she had no concerns. Very often, the placenta will move up and out of the way, and it's not an issue. Like as the uterus grows, the placenta will move with it. So I had another ultrasound booked. That was the ultrasound we were at on Monday, and we got some very disheartening news. The abdominal ultrasound showed that the placenta had only moved up a few millimeters. My doctor asked if I wanted to do a vaginal ultrasound, which for placenta previa is a lot more accurate than like an abdominal ultrasound. So we went ahead and did that, and we found out that the placenta is actually right up against the cervix. And so I was officially diagnosed with placenta previa. So it was actually a lot worse than we thought it was. I have been put on vaginal rest, which in other words means no sex and nothing goes up there. And I need to keep a very close eye out for bleeding. They were very, very clear and persistent that I really need to watch out for bleeding. They actually want me to increase my iron intake by food or by supplements somehow in the case that I do end up bleeding. And if I do spot anything at all, if there's any blood whatsoever, I'm supposed to go straight to the hospital immediately. So we have our parents on call in the case that all of a sudden I need to go to the hospital. I don't entirely know all the risks, but they were just making it very, very, very clear that I need to be so careful about bleeding and watching out for that. I'm not on bed rest. I shouldn't obviously be doing anything too strenuous, but yeah, that's where I am at right now. I have an ultrasound in 3 weeks to check on it again. And then again at 35 weeks, they will do a final ultrasound to determine whether or not they will be taking this baby early by C-section. If the placenta does not move, I will be booked in for a scheduled C-section between 36 and 37 weeks again. A C-section is not the end of the world. I've been through it. I know I can do it. Now I know what to expect. This is exactly what I have been fearing and praying and hoping I wouldn't have to experience again. I so badly want to have that experience of not knowing when I'm going into labor and to have that, you know, rush to the hospital and to feel everything. And I wanted so badly to experience that again. And above all else, I am hoping and praying that we will completely avoid the NICU. That was the hardest part of the whole experience with William. Not that he was in there for a really long time or that he was very sick, but to have to go through a C-section and then not be able to see or hold my baby. Again, C-sections are not the end of the world. They are a miracle, and I am so thankful for modern medicine and for these ultrasounds and for doctors who have wisdom and knowledge to help get my baby here safely. I am so thankful. My recovery and general experience with a C-section was a lot harder and so much more painful than with my first 2 births. I just really hoped and prayed I wouldn't have to walk this road again, but here we are. At this point, it would take a miracle for my placenta to move enough for me to have a trial of labor, but my doctor, the high-risk doctor, she has said that she's seen it happen. She's not giving up on me. She really wants for me to have a vaginal birth if at all possible. And I'm so grateful that she's advocating for me and that she's on my side in this. But if it can't happen, it just can't happen. And so her job is obviously to make sure that baby gets here safe, that I am safe and well. So she did say that if the placenta elongates and thins out and moves even just 1 centimeter away from the cervix, then we can talk about having a trial of labor. Ideally, they want it to be at least 2 centimeters away. It all feels like bad deja vu. And honestly, I had this feeling going into this appointment that this was exactly the kind of news that we were gonna get. It was hard for me to even believe that the placenta would move. After my last experience with the placenta, just like every time we went in, we just got worse news. And I remember as we were walking into the building for that appointment, I could hear the Lord speaking to me, not in an audible voice or anything, but like the words ran through my head like as a thought. I so vividly remember hearing the Lord say, "Do you trust me?" I just kind of brushed it away and I kept praying for what I wanted. And after the appointment, I remembered that. I just surrendered. I just surrendered everything to him. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's going to perform a miracle and at the next ultrasound we're going to get the news that I can go for a trial of labor. Or maybe the placenta won't move at all and we'll have to walk through this whole C-section experience again. I have absolutely no idea what the next few months are going to hold or what this birth is going to look like. But what I do know is that the Lord loves with an unconditional love, and he is watching over us and he cares for us. And he is holding me in his arms and in the shadow of his wings. He was gonna take care of us. That doesn't mean he's a genie in a bottle and he's gonna give me everything that I want, but it does mean that he will be watching over us every step of the way. You know what, I'm gonna go grab my Bible because the next day I was reading in Lamentations, which is a very depressing book of the Bible, but hold on. I have slowly been reading through my Bible, but I've been taking a break to read more of the New Testament because I love the New Testament. But I went back to Lamentations for whatever reason. Very clearly it was God saying, I want you to read this passage. Basically the author of Lamentations is just mourning and groaning over the destruction of Jerusalem and the fall of Jerusalem and the awful things that was going on. In the middle of the lament, chapter 3 verses 21 to 24 says, "Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him." And then verse 32 is really what got me. It says, "Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love." And I can see that so clearly in so many different times in my life, specifically in William's birth. He did not grant me my heart's desire. He made me walk through exactly what I feared the most. But he was with us every step and every moment. Even though it was a very high-risk pregnancy, we were unaware of it until the last day. I got to live that entire pregnancy without fear of the risks. And he protected us the whole time. And there are so many more details within his birth and within that experience that I'm not going to go into right now, but time and time again, he has proven himself faithful. The kids and I have been memorizing Philippians 4:4-8, which talks about, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." And I love that the peace of God will guard your hearts and minds. Friends, if you have ever felt the peace of God, it is such a beautiful, incredible feeling. And it really does feel like your heart and mind are being guarded. And like he's watching over you and he's protecting you. And I trust him. I trust him. As for the baby, everything looks perfect. The baby is developing perfectly. The heartbeat is good and strong. The heartbeat was at 152 at the ultrasound, and then I had a prenatal later that day, and the heartbeat was at 159. Baby is active and healthy. The fluid levels are perfect. The placenta looks perfect aside from the fact that it's low. But I'm so thankful we don't have any of these other complications we had in the last pregnancy, like the exposed blood vessels, and the cord insertion was not in the center, it was on the edge and by the cervix, and like there's none of that other kind of complication this time. It's just the fact that the placenta is low, and for that I am so thankful. I mean, placenta previa is very common. It's not unusual. I know many other women go through this and face this as well. My heart goes out to you. I am praying for you. I am right there with you. You're not alone. You're not alone. So the last few days have just been a lot of processing, a lot of crying. We thought we had a lot more time than we actually do. We thought we had like 3 more months left. Now we realize this baby is most likely coming in like less than 2 months. This is not gonna be an August baby. This is gonna be another July baby. I haven't even like thought about preparing for a baby yet, and now all of a sudden I realize we have so much left to do. It's all just hitting us really, really hard, and we're trying to process and prioritize what really needs to happen and what can wait. Really just want to soak in and enjoy these last 2 months before this baby's arrival, especially like, what if this is my last pregnancy? What if this is the last time I'm gonna go through a birth again, and the last time we're gonna welcome a newborn into our family? Like, I don't want an unexpected and unwanted experience to ruin it for us. Like, I don't want that to get in the way of the whole experience. I want to enjoy this to the fullest no matter what happens. The next 2 months are going to be crazy. Crazy, but it will be good. You know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do a belly shot. All right, so this is where we are at 27 weeks pregnant. The belly is still quite high, hasn't really dropped at all yet. I don't feel too big or heavy yet. The belly button is kind of like half popped out. I don't know. But that is what the belly looks like. I've been feeling a lot of movements kind of in this area and up here. I was feeling them really low down here, but now they're more up here. My favorite part of pregnancy is just feeling all of those sweet, sweet little movements. That is everything for today's video. I was gonna say I hope you enjoyed, but at the same time, that feels kind of weird to say after sharing that kind of news. That is where we're at. And we are just leaning very heavily on the Lord right now. I am so thankful that I am feeling as good as I'm feeling, and I am so thankful that we have the Lord to trust and to lean on, because this life is so unsteady and unpredictable, and I could not do this without him. So I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.